Hello, and welcome to Leanplum, the complete mobile marketing platform. In this video, I will be giving you an overview of Leanplum's A/B testing capabilities. We will cover what it takes to get set up, basic functionality, as well as some advanced uses. At Leanplum, A/B testing is in our DNA. Ever since the founding of our company, we've allowed our customers to test and analyze content changes in their app. And over time, based on customer feedback, we expanded that testing functionality to also include testing your marketing campaigns. To get started, let's head over to the dashboard to create an A/B test from scratch. First things first, let's give this test a name. Here, we'll call this our new feature test. When setting up a test within Leanplum, you have the ability to test any content. This includes messages, variables, as well as visual interfaces. If you haven't already, I would suggest you check out our other overview videos on app editing and messaging to learn more about those feature sets. For this test, I first want to enable a new feature to a group of my users. I will click Select Variable in our drop-down menu and select the variable named Enable New Feature. You'll notice the default value for this variable is false, meaning no one is currently seeing this feature in my app. However, I'm going to change this value to true for users in variant 1. By default, this test is set up to be a 50-50 distribution, meaning 50% of your users will see the feature and the other 50% won't. However, we can always update that. Perhaps I want this test to be a 90-10 split. But let's not just stop at turning on this new feature for our users. Let's also send a push notification that announces this new feature. At Leanplum, we never want to limit you, meaning you can add as many pieces of content to your test as you'd like. Let's go up to the Add drop-down, and you'll notice that here's where we can add our variables, messages, and interfaces to this test. For now, I'm going to select Messages and add our new feature announcement message to this test. Now, simply by enabling this message for the users receiving the feature, we can test the message alongside this new feature. This level of flexibility can save a lot of time and hassle, as you don't have to manage multiple services for your content and marketing needs. Leanplum handles all of these for you in one platform. To further highlight the flexibility of Leanplum's A/B testing, let's add one more layer to this test. I'm not sure I have the best copy for my push notification, so I want to test that out and see if a new call to action will lead to higher engagement within my app. I'll choose to add a new variant, turn on this feature, and then I'll go into my message and update the copy. Now that we have our test experience set up, let's go over some other options that you can configure when setting up your test. The first are going to be your goals. If you click the plus icon here, you'll see that it takes you to the entire metric catalog. That is because Leanplum allows you to analyze your test using any metric that you're tracking. Goals indicate to Leanplum what your most important metrics are, and we'll highlight those for you on the analytics page. However, we won't stop analyzing your test with just your goals. Rather, we'll analyze every metric for you automatically to indicate to you if any of those metrics have experienced a statistically significant change. I'll cover this more in the analytics section, but just know that you're not limited to these goals you select here. For now, I'm going to select a monetization goal of maximizing my average revenue, as well as trying to optimize my cart flow in the application. Next, we have the ability to select a target audience for this test. And we have another video dedicated to our targeting and segmentation capabilities, so I would encourage you to check that out and find all the different ways you can slice and dice your user base. Once we've set up our targeting, we've completed the basic setup for an A/B test. We've selected the content we want to test and assigned those to specific variants, and we've also selected our goals and target audience. Now, let's take a look at some advanced uses of A/B testing before viewing the analytic results. The first section we'll talk about is Leanplum's time estimator. Clicking into this section, you'll see that it goes goal by goal and gives an estimate as to how long we anticipate it will take for this goal to reach statistical significance for your test. This estimate is given to you even before you publish your test, which means if you see a really long time frame, for example, a test taking longer than a month, you have the ability to reconfigure your test before you publish it out to your app audience. Now, we'll take a look at Leanplum's impression criteria. Impression criteria is all about ensuring that a user is exposed to your test before we count them towards the analytic results. Let's describe this by taking into account two real-world examples. In one case, let's say we want to change something on the home screen of our app. That means every user who comes into the application and is placed into the test has to see that change. In this case, there's no need to set an impression criteria. However, in our second test, we want to test something much further down the funnel. For example, something on our checkout page. This means that not every user who comes into the application and is placed into the test is going to be exposed to that change. And that's where impression criteria comes into play. When a user launches the application, we will first evaluate their targeting criteria, and if they match that target, we'll assign them to a variant. But in terms of analytic tracking, we'll wait until a user reaches the impression criteria in your app, and only when they trigger that event will we then track their behavior to this test. That way, if you do see a statistically significant change in your user's behavior, you can be certain that that behavioral change happened to only users who have been exposed to the change in your app. Now, let's take a look at the targeting for this test. Currently, it's set up to only target users who are first-time users to the application. However, you'll notice that there's a magnet icon next to the target. This indicates whether the test target should be sticky or not. If the magnet background is white, like it is now, that means that this target is not sticky. And what this means is that targeting will be reevaluated on every session. This means that when a user who was in this test comes back to the app, they're no longer going to be considered a first-time user, and thus they'll actually be removed from the test. But maybe that isn't the behavior that we're expecting from this test, and instead, we want to ensure that any user in the test stays in the test until its completion. In this case, we would select the magnet and make this test sticky. Once enabled, any user who is assigned to a variant will stay in that test variant until the test is finished, regardless of if they leave the targeting criteria. And speaking of finished test, let's talk about the control you have. You'll notice that next to the test name, there is an icon dropdown. This is where you can choose to pause, copy, or delete a test. Deleting a test will remove it completely from Leanplum, and you won't have the ability to retrieve it. Copying is useful when you want to reuse the same test configuration in a different use case. Pausing a test will essentially stop it for all users. Users currently receiving an override, in this case receiving our new feature, will stop seeing that experience. So it's like you finished your test. However, pausing gives you the ability to republish that test. And if you do republish, Leanplum will ensure that any user previously in that test will be placed back into the test and into the same test variant that they were in before. And finally, let's say we've ran this test and are seeing great results. We can choose to roll out this test directly from the dashboard. In the top right-hand corner, you'll see an option to choose I'm finished. Here, you'll have the option to choose which variant it was that's your winning variant. And here, I'll choose Show Feature since this new feature led to great engagement within the app. Then, I can choose whether or not to roll out this change to all users or just users matching my target audience for this test. Here, I'm going to select all users for now. And finally, you have the ability to add a comment. And this is a great area for you to share with your colleagues about why you chose this winning variant. Once you finish this test, Leanplum will immediately publish the winning variant out to your entire user base. And when a user opens up their app for the next time, they'll have access to this new feature that we just enabled. Now that we've seen how to create a test, let's take a look at the analytics behind the results. Back in our test dashboard, I'm going to select View Results and get taken into Leanplum's A/B testing analytics. The first thing that I'll point out is that Leanplum's A/B testing analytics are all backed by statistical significance. We by default set the confidence interval at 95%, though that can be made more or less stringent depending on your needs. Even though we're performing advanced calculations on your data, we try to make the test results as visual as possible to make them easy to understand. This starts with the shaded region around the line graph, which represents the low and high bounds of your confidence interval. And the easiest way to think about this chart is that if these shaded regions don't overlap, we have a statistically significant change on that day. And that's exactly what we're seeing here. The variant that's receiving this new feature is experiencing a statistically significant increase over the users who are not receiving this feature. A really great result to see. However, if we scroll down the page, you'll notice that we have a few sections of what we call our metric tiles. The top section will include the goals that you've set up for this test. The middle section are your favorite metric tiles. And this section is configured by you and will show up on every analytics page that you view within Leanplum. You'll also notice that there's color coding added to these tiles. A green or a red metric tile indicates that this metric has experienced a positive or negative statistical change based on this test. But what I want to draw your attention to is this third section of metric tiles labeled significant changes. For every A/B test that you run, Leanplum will automatically look through each metric that you're tracking in search of any metric that has experienced a statistically significant change. If and when we do find one, we'll automatically put it here in this section and order it in terms of magnitude of that change. And the reason we do this is to help avoid unforeseen consequences when running a test. We never want to limit you in terms of how you can analyze your test, and that's why we give you more than just analytics around your goals. One thing we've learned over the years is that A/B testing is all about trade-offs. Rarely will you run a test where all changes are positive. More often than not, you'll get some positive changes and some negative changes. Because of this, we want to automate to you all of the metrics that have undergone a statistically significant change so that you can make the most informed decision about which test variant is best for your app and your users. Another way Leanplum helps you analyze your test is by viewing your results not just for your entire app audience, but also for specific segments of your users. At the top of the page, you'll see options to filter and group your data, and the options in these dropdowns are similar to our targeting and segmentation capabilities we offer through the rest of the platform. One example could be to group your users geographically by country to see if this test is universal, where all users like the change. Or perhaps this test is regional, where only a few countries like it and all other users aren't showing positive results. The benefit with Leanplum is that you can perform all of this analysis on the fly. There's no need to predefine your segments, nor do we limit how many segments you can analyze. Based on the data we're seeing for this test, it looks like a pretty positive test, and one that will most likely roll out to 100% of our user base. As you've seen, Leanplum offers a lot of flexibility when it comes to creating a test and analyzing the results. I hope you found this overview useful and enjoyable, and please check out our other overview videos to understand the full breadth of Leanplum's platform. If you have any questions or feedback along the way, we'd love to hear from you at support@leanplum.com. Thank you, and have a great day.